fire, screaming souls, demons with horns and whips. This is the hell we think we know. But what if the birthplace of eternal torment isn't ancient Jerusalem or Rome, but the shadowed deserts of Persia, where the demon Angra Mainyu first waged war on creation? Scholars debate whether this terror truly created our hell, but the evidence traces a chilling evolution, from neutral, dusty afterlives to a realm of pure agony and cosmic punishment. How did one distant adversary turn the world's gloom into a furnace of fear? And why do echoes of his darkness haunt our nightmares even now? The answer begins long before fire ever touched the underworld. Beneath the ancient cities of Sumer and Babylon, beneath the roots of every grave, stretched a world without sunlight or song. The Sumerians called it Kur, the land of no return. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest stories carved into clay, describes this place in grim detail. A cavern of dust where the dead wear feathers like birds and eat clay for eternity. No fire burns here, no screams echo. There is only silence, broken by the slow shuffle of souls who have forgotten the warmth of the sun. The journey into Kur was said to pass through 7 gates, each one stripping away memory and hope. Gatekeepers stood watch, their names lost to time, but their purpose clear: to keep the living from wandering too close, and the dead from ever climbing out. Lists of these gates survive in cuneiform, their wedge-shaped marks pressed into tablets that outlasted the empires that wrote them. Once inside, there was no judgment, no weighing of good and evil. Kings and beggars, heroes and traitors, all shared the same fate: endless dust, endless darkness. In the Hebrew scriptures, this shadowed realm is called Sheol. Psalm 88:3 pleads, "My life draws near to Sheol, echoing the same dread." Sheol is not a place of fire, but a pit, bor in Hebrew, a place where even memory decays. The dead are cut off from the world above, unable to praise or speak, their names fading with each passing generation. To enter Sheol was to lose everything but the dust between your teeth. Across these lands, the underworld was not a punishment for sin, it was simply the end. No demon waited to torment the wicked. No God promised reward for the righteous. All that remained was the slow drift of dust, the sameness of eternity, and the certainty that every path led downward. In a world so bleak, the hunger for meaning and for something more grew quietly in the dark. At the heart of the ancient underworld stood rulers who commanded respect and dread, not for their cruelty, but for their absolute authority over death. Ereshkigal, queen of the Sumerian netherworld, ruled from her palace called Ganzir, a fortress of stone and shadow deeper than any tomb. She was not a devil nor a rebel. She was the necessary sovereign of the dead, holding court in a land where all things lost their names. Myths tell of Inanna, the goddess of love and war, descending to Ereshkigal's realm. Stripped of her power at each of the 7 gates, Inanna found herself naked before the queen, judged not for her sins, but for daring to cross the boundary between life and death. Ereshkigal's justice was impersonal, her realm a mirror of the world's end, orderly, silent, and inescapable. Beside her, Nergal, the god of plague and war, sometimes shared the throne. In one tale, Nergal storms into the underworld, bringing with him the fever of summer and the threat of chaos. Yet even he cannot overthrow Ereshkigal's rule. Instead, he becomes her consort, a reminder that death is both a force and a fact, never fully tamed. Nergal's name was whispered in times of pestilence, his anger blamed for outbreaks that swept through cities and fields. Yet in the underworld, his role was not to torment, but to uphold the boundary between the living and the dead. Further west, in Canaan, Mot, the personification of death, devoured gods and mortals alike. The Ugaritic Baal cycle tells how Mot swallowed the storm god Baal, plunging the world into drought and silence. But Mot was not evil. He was the hunger at the end of every story, a cosmic necessity. The cycle of death and return governed the seasons, not a moral reckoning, but a law of nature. These rulers did not punish souls for wickedness or reward them for virtue. Their power was absolute, but it was not rebellion. In these earliest myths, death had a face and a name, but not yet a moral agenda. The darkness was not a prison built for sinners, but the final destination for everyone, ruled by figures who kept the balance, not by demons who delighted in suffering. In the shadowed corners of the ancient world, fear took on a different shape. Demons were not the organized armies of evil that haunt later scriptures. They were unpredictable, wild, and everywhere, a constant threat woven into daily life. The Gala, a host of netherworld spirits, haunted the boundaries between the living and the dead. Their task was simple and terrifying: to drag souls down into Kur, the land of no return. Myths warn that a person could be snatched away by the Gala without warning, vanishing into darkness for reasons no priest or king could explain. Lamashtu, a name whispered by mothers and midwives, brought terror to the nursery. She was said to stalk the night, hunting infants and pregnant women, spreading sickness and nightmares with her touch. Her image appears on clay plaques, fanged and lion-headed, gripping snakes in both hands. No one trusted luck alone to keep her at bay. Instead, families turned to magic, inscribed amulets, carved with pleas for protection, and spells hammered onto bronze tablets. These were not prayers for forgiveness, but desperate bargains for survival. Against this tide of chaos stood Pazuzu, a demon with the wings and claws of a bird and the face of a snarling beast. Unlike the others, Pazuzu was summoned as a protector. He was the lesser evil, called upon to drive Lamashtu away. Amulets bearing his image dangled over cradles and doorways, a reminder that sometimes only a demon could keep worse spirits at bay. In times of plague, his name was invoked to hold back the winds of disease. The line between guardian and threat was never clear. Pazuzu promised safety, but his presence was a warning that danger was never far. These spirits did not punish sin or weigh the hearts of the dead. They brought misfortune, disease, and sudden death, striking without pattern or reason. Their world was not a courtroom, but a storm, random, merciless, and inescapable. The earliest demons were not judges of the afterlife, but the unpredictable shadows that crept through every home after dark. They made the world feel fragile, and the boundary between life and death impossibly thin. In the highlands of ancient Iran, a man named Zoroaster stood apart from the world he knew. He spoke of a war that was older than any king, deeper than any grave, a struggle not just between gods, but between two primal spirits that shaped the fate of every living soul. In his hymns, the Gathas, Zoroaster described these forces as twins, one wholly good, the other bent on destruction. Yasna 30.3 names them as the better and the bad in thought, word, and deed. The good spirit, Angra Mainyu, aligned with truth, Asha, a force that brought order, light, and life. The other, called aka Mainyu or Angra Mainyu in later texts, was the spirit of the lie, Druj, spreading chaos, decay, and death. Zoroaster did not frame this battle as distant myth. He insisted that every human choice tipped the scales. To choose truth was to join Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, in the work of creation. To choose the lie was to side with the destructive spirit, whose only joy was in unraveling what was good. Yasna 45.2 speaks of these spirits revealing themselves in every action, every word, every hidden thought. The battlefield was not some far-off land, but the mind and heart of every person. This was a new idea in the ancient world. The old underworlds had no room for justice or hope. Zoroaster's vision offered something different, a universe where morality was not just a social rule, but a cosmic weapon. Each soul became a soldier, not by birth or ritual, but by the choices made in life. The afterlife was no longer a grey shadowland for all. It was shaped by what each person did with their freedom. The terms Asha and Druj carried a weight heavier than law. Asha was the pattern of truth. the right way to live, the order of the world itself. Druj was more than a lie. It was the poison that made crops fail, that turned neighbors into enemies, that brought rot and ruin wherever it spread. To align with Asher was to build, to heal, to protect. To fall into Druj was to become an agent of the destructive spirit, feeding the darkness that threatened all existence. Zoroaster's message was not just a call to piety, it was a warning. The fate of the soul, and perhaps the world itself, hung on the edge of every decision. In this cosmic drama, every person mattered. The ancient dust of Kur and the silence of Sheol faded before this new vision. A universe divided, a war that touched every life, and a future that could be won or lost by the power of human choice. Angra Mainyu does not linger in the shadows or wait for souls to stumble into his grasp. In the oldest Zoroastrian texts, he is the force that advances, corrupts, and unravels. The Vendidad tells of a moment when Zoroaster himself, the prophet, stands face to face with this destroyer. Angra Mainyu tempts him with promises of world sovereignty, offering power in exchange for allegiance to the lie. When the prophet refuses, Angra Mainyu unleashes his legions, demons of disease, spirits of drought, every form of decay that can gnaw at the living world. Yasna 19.15 names his weapon, plague, sent to wither the earth and drive hope from the hearts of men. Drought follows in his wake, fields cracking, rivers shrinking to dust. Where he passes, the world sickens. His attacks are not only physical. He is the architect of temptation, whispering to mortals to betray the truth, to embrace the easy path of the lie. The Vendidad describes how his agents, divers, move unseen, urging priests to abandon their rituals, families to turn against each other, and kings to rule with cruelty. Every broken oath, every act of violence, every moment of despair is a victory for Angra Mainyu. He does not punish the wicked after death. He makes the world itself a kind of hell, poisoning the land and the soul alike. Yet his reach does not stop at the living. The texts hint at something darker. When the wicked die, their souls are not simply left to drift. Angra Mainyu mocks them from the depths, asking, "Why did you eat Ahura Mazda's bread?" In some passages, he is described as binding the wicked with chains that cannot be broken, dragging them downward into a pit of filth and hunger. The wicked are not tormented because of who they are, but because of what they have chosen. Their suffering is the echo of the chaos they fed in life, a torment shaped by their own actions, magnified by the hand of the demon. This is not the orderly kingdom of Ereshkigal or the bleak hunger of Kur. Angra Mainyu's realm is active, personal, and hungry for destruction. The world becomes a battlefield, every soul a potential casualty. In this vision, evil is not a passive shadow. It is a force that hunts, tempts, and devours, demanding a place to contain the wickedness it unleashes. The need for a prison, a pit, a hell, grows out of the relentless sabotage of this ancient adversary. At the end of every life, Zoroastrian tradition sets a final crossing. The Chinvat Bridge waits, suspended between the world of the living and the unknown. Souls arrive here alone, carrying nothing but the weight of their deeds. For the righteous, the bridge stretches wide and solid, easy as a sunlit road. For the wicked, it narrows to a blade, sharp enough to slice hope from memory. There is no mercy in its architecture, only the strict measure of truth and lie. 3 judges stand at the crossing: Mithra, the keeper of contracts; Sraosha, the spirit of obedience; and Rashnu, who holds the scales. They do not bargain or threaten. They weigh every thought, every word, every secret act. If a soul's good outweighs its evil, the bridge widens. The departed passes safely to the house of song, a place of light, sweet scents, and reunion with the righteous dead. But for the soul heavy with deceit, the bridge becomes impossibly thin. One misstep, and the wicked fall headlong into the abyss below. Ancient texts call this the House of Lies, a pit filled with filth, darkness, and the echo of every sin. The Bundahishn describes it as a place where the stench is thickest, where hunger gnaws and demons mock the fallen. There is no gentle fading here, no rest or forgetting. Punishment is not random, it is tailored, shaped by the soul's own choices. The liar is surrounded by lies, the violent by violence, the greedy by endless want. Fire is everywhere, sometimes as a wall, sometimes as a river. In Avestan rituals, fire is the purifier, burning away the stain of evil. Here, it becomes ordeal. Some texts speak of molten metal poured over the wicked, not to destroy, but to cleanse through agony. The torment is not eternal. In the end, even the pit will be emptied, the world remade. But until then, the house of lies stands as a warning. Every soul must cross the bridge, and every secret will be weighed in the fire's light. This vision plants the seeds of something new, a post-mortem realm shaped by judgment, where the wicked suffer not by chance, but by the consequences of their own betrayals. The bridge is more than a passage. It is the first true border between reward and punishment, hinting at the hells that would haunt later faiths. In 539 BCE, the armies of Cyrus the Great swept into Babylon, toppling the last king and unfurling the banners of the Achaemenid Empire across the ruins of the Old World. For the first time, Jewish exiles, scribes and priests found themselves living under a regime that ruled from the Nile to the Indus, its authority cemented not just by force, but by a sophisticated bureaucracy. The imperial machine ran on clay and ink, administrative orders pressed into cuneiform tablets, edicts issued in Old Persian, Elamite, Akkadian, and Aramaic. In the newly formed province of Yehud, Jewish officials learned to navigate Persian systems, their own documents now carrying the marks of a bilingual scribal class. Contracts, tax records, and temple receipts bear witness to a world where Hebrew prayers and Persian decrees mingled in the same air. The daily reality of Persian rule was one of negotiation and adaptation. Jewish leaders reported to satraps, regional governors appointed by the king, who enforced imperial policies and mediated disputes. The Persian administration encouraged local customs and religious practices, but it also demanded loyalty to the crown and participation in the empire's rituals of record-keeping and tribute. The famous Cyrus cylinder, a clay artifact inscribed in Akkadian, proclaims the king's respect for the gods of conquered peoples and his role as a restorer of sanctuaries. For the Jewish community, this translated into the right to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, but it also meant exposure to new ideas carried by Persian officials, traders, and priests moving through the empire's corridors of power. Archaeological evidence from Yehud, seal impressions, ostraca, and administrative bullae reveals a landscape shaped by imperial oversight. Names of Persian governors appear alongside those of local elders, their authority stamped onto everyday transactions. In the archives of Nippur and the Murashu family business, contracts written in Aramaic show Jewish merchants and functionaries participating in the broader economic life of the empire. These documents do not record theological debates, but they map the networks through which ideas could travel. A scribe copying a contract might overhear a story about the Chinvat Bridge. A priest paying taxes might listen to a tale of cosmic struggle between Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. The machinery of empire was more than roads and armies. It was a system that brought people and their beliefs into contact. In the shadow of Persian fire temples, Jewish scribes encountered concepts of divine judgment, moral dualism, and the weighing of souls. The boundaries between cultures blurred in the margins of administrative tablets and the shared language of law. Over time, these encounters seeded questions that would bloom in later texts. The shift from a shadowy Sheol to a world where actions carried consequences after death did not happen in a single revelation, but through the slow, practical osmosis of daily life under Persian rule. The empire's reach was measured not just in territory, but in the ideas that passed from one hand to another, inscribed in clay, carried in memory, and whispered in the spaces between languages. Smoke once drifted from the southern ravines outside Jerusalem, rising from the valley of Hinnom. This place, known in Hebrew as Hinnom, later Gehenna, was infamous long before it became a byword for damnation. Ancient kings led children here to the fires of Molech, seeking power through sacrifice. Prophets condemned these rites, calling the valley cursed, a place where innocence burned and memory stank of ash. Over centuries, the valley filled with refuse, animal bones, and the city's waste, its fires smoldering day and night to consume what the living cast away. Archaeologists digging through its layers have found Iron Age ash, burnt bones, and pottery, evidence of centuries of burning, though never the unending inferno of later imagination. In the earliest scriptures, Sheol was the only destination for the dead, a silent pit, neither reward nor punishment. But as Persian shadows fell across Yehud, a new anxiety crept into Jewish thought. The world was no longer a flat plain of dust and forgetfulness. Instead, it fractured into light and darkness, reward and retribution. The Book of Daniel, written in the age of empires and upheaval, offers a stark promise. Many who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt, as recorded in Daniel 12:2. For the first time, the dead are divided. Resurrection is no longer a hope for all, but a sorting, righteousness lifted, wickedness cast down. In the winding passages of 1st Enoch, written a century later, the vision grows more terrifying. Enoch is led by angels to a chasm blazing with fire, a prison for fallen spirits and sinful souls. Here, the wicked are held in torment, their cries lost in the roar of flames. The imagery is unmistakable, a valley of burning, a place of separation, a fate shaped by deeds and judged by powers beyond mortal reach. The righteous are gathered into light, while the damned are left to burn, watched over by angels, with faces like lightning. Gehenna becomes more than a cursed valley. It is the symbol of divine judgment, a furnace for the sins of a nation. The fires that once devoured refuse and memory now ignite in the imagination as the final destination for the wicked. The line between metaphor and reality blurs. In rabbinic tradition, Gehenna's flames are said to burn for the wicked for 12 months, their suffering measured, their punishment purifying. But in apocalyptic writings, the torment stretches toward eternity, echoing the Persian visions of a bridge, a fall, and a pit filled with the consequences of one's own choices. The old world of Sheol, silent, grey, impartial, fades beneath this new terror. The valley outside Jerusalem becomes the mouth of moral hell, a place where fire does not simply destroy, but judges. The dead are no longer lost in sameness. They are sifted, separated, and sent to their fates by a justice that burns as hot as any flame. What began as a refuse pit becomes the template for the world's most feared afterlife, a vision of hell, born from the mingling of Persian dualism and Jewish memory, flickering forever on the edge of belief. Scholars have spent decades debating whether the earliest Hebrew vision of the afterlife was truly neutral or already hinted at moral judgment. John Walton, writing in 2015, The Lost World of Adam and Eve, argues that Sheol, like the Mesopotamian Kur, was simply the end for everyone, righteous or wicked. In Walton's view, the Hebrew Bible describes Sheol as a place of silence and forgetfulness, not a courtroom or a furnace. He points to passages such as Psalm 88, where Sheol is the final destination for all, and insists that ancient Israelites saw no reward or punishment after death, only the slow fading of memory. Michael Heiser, in The Unseen Realm, 2015, and later works, challenges this neutrality. He highlights texts such as Psalm 82, which speaks of a divine council holding judgment over the nations. Heiser suggests that beneath the surface, the Hebrew scriptures contain the seeds of a moral afterlife, a world where the gods weigh the deeds of humanity and where the fate of the soul is not quite so impartial. He reads hints of separation and judgment in poetic language, arguing that the lines between neutral Sheol and a place of reckoning were already beginning to blur. The debate between Walton and Heiser divides the field. Some see Sheol as a shadowy waiting room, others as the first step toward a moral universe. Their disagreement shapes how scholars interpret the later rise of hell, a reminder that even the earliest texts are not as simple or as silent as they seem. Mary Boyce, one of the most respected authorities on Zoroastrianism, argued that Angra Mainyu stands as the embodiment of destruction and chaos, but not as the architect of a literal hell. In her view, drawn from the Gathas and the earliest Avestan texts, Angra Mainyu is a cosmic adversary, opposing truth, unleashing plagues, and corrupting the world, never enthroned as ruler of the underworld. The punishment of the wicked, she explained, is a natural consequence of their own choices, not a sentence handed down by a demon king. The Bunda Shishan, a Middle Persian text, describes the soul's fall from the Chinvat Bridge into a pit of darkness and filth, tormented by demons, yet Angra Mainyu remains a distant presence, mocking, tempting, but not presiding. Jacques Regis, writing in a 2020 journal article, challenges this reading. He points to passages in the Bunda Shishan and later Pahlavi commentaries that paint Angra Mainyu as the originator of death and the one who, through his actions, brings about the worst existence for the deceitful. Regis argues that this figure evolves into a proto-hell lord, shaping the very idea of a punitive afterlife during the Persian era. He sees the taunts of Angra Mainyu from the abyss and the demons who punish the wicked as the seeds of a demonic jurisdiction over hell, a function that echoes in later visions of Satan. The evidence remains tangled. Boyce's reading grounds Angra Mainyu in cosmic conflict, while Regis follows the path from Persian dualism to the emergence of a demon with jurisdiction over post-mortem suffering. The debate is not just about ancient texts, but about the roots of the hell that would haunt the world's imagination. Competing theories try to explain how the idea of a fiery, moral hell traveled from the Persian world into Jewish thought. Jan Zwartius, a diffusionist writing in 2015, points to the Babylonian exile and Persian imperial networks as the main highway for these beliefs. He traces the spread of dualism and afterlife judgment through administrative overlap, shared languages, and even loanwords, arguing that terms like abyss in Daniel carry a Persian accent. For Zwartius, the evidence lies in the timing. Jewish texts describing resurrection and punishment surface only after centuries of Persian contact, and the details, bridges, fire, cosmic adversaries, echo Zoroastrian models too closely to be coincidence. Robert Alter, in his 2018 work, takes a different stance. He sees the evolution of hell as an internal process, rooted in the prophetic imagination and the traumas of exile. Alter argues that Jewish writers transformed existing motifs, drawing on their own scriptures and experiences rather than borrowing Zoroastrian doctrine wholesale. He points out that moral judgment and visions of the afterlife already simmer in the Hebrew Bible, and that Persian ideas may have provided inspiration, but not a blueprint. Daniel Graham, publishing in 2022, suggests a hybrid path. He sees selective borrowing at work, Jewish scribes picking up certain images and terms but weaving them into a tapestry that remains distinctively their own. Graham highlights the patchwork evidence. Some Persian loanwords here, prophetic continuity there, and a final product that cannot be traced to a single source. The result is a complex web, not a straight line, where ideas of hell emerge from dialogue, not dictation. A line from the Yasna lingers in the dark. Why did you eat Ahura Mazda's bread? In these ancient verses, the abyss is not just a place below, it is a question, a taunt hurled at the soul by something waiting at the bottom. The pit is filled with filth, hunger, and the laughter of demons. The suffering is shaped not by accident, but by the choices of the dead, and the voice that accuses them is old, cold, and relentless. Now scroll forward to a headline from a 2019 occult blog, Ahriman, the demon who invented hell. The claim is bold, almost triumphant. It paints Angra Mainyu as the master architect of eternal torment, the original Satan, the blueprint for every horned devil that stalks the Western imagination. The blog's language is feverish, fire, chains, eternal screams, offering certainty where the oldest texts only offer riddles. On one side, the measured cruelty of scripture, a soul mocked for betraying truth, falling into a pit of its own making. On the other, the spectacle of modern myth, a demon with a crown, ruling over endless fire. The question hangs in the air: who shaped hell? The answer is lost somewhere between an ancient whisper and a modern scream. Today, visions of hell still shape laws, politics, and even mental health, proof that ancient fears have outlived their original temples. When we picture punishment beyond death, we're echoing ideas forged in the fires of distant Persia, not just scripture. As long as belief holds power, the shadow of that old adversary shapes our nightmares and our choices. What would justice look like if we finally left the demon behind? Share your thoughts below.